First thing I want to do is kind of get that background blocked in. I'm going to try to do it quickly so that we can go far. And as I promised, solvents making an entrance immediately. Gonna paint fast, paint sketchy, so that we can get where we want to go. And making adaptations as soon as I see things on my paper that are not as perfect as I want them to be, I just dip my brush into another color and adjust. So it was a little too light. I made it a tad bit darker. Now it feels very, very good to me. And as I'm painting, I'll be happy to answer questions, if there are any.
I think we're all caught up for the moment.
Beautiful. And thank you so much for signing up for this lesson again. I'm having a really great time working with you. And thanks to CCS and to Rosalind for hosting me and for putting these lessons together. It's a real pleasure for me to work with CCS. Yeah, thanks for taking care of everything. Be very, very quick. If I try to do this on wood, forget about it. Look at how much solvent I'm putting in. It's so liquidy. But the paper is very absorbent. It's going to drink it all up super easily. And I'm going to have no problem going back into it with more paint in as little as 20 minutes. I'm going to be able to continue adjusting the colors here if I find them, you know, in lacking something. I could immediately go back to it and make adjustment just because this is what this paper does. It just drinks everything up like crazy. And when I just started working on this paper, it was driving me insane because I was used to working on wood and I was like, what the hell? This thing just drinks everything I do. I can't work this way. I was frustrated. And then I understood, oh, if I just incorporate more solvent into my technique, I'm gonna fully solve this problem entirely. So it's all about how to make that surface work for you and how to find the correct way of adjusting your technique so that it's compatible with any given surface. Hope that makes sense. Go over here into the bottom, and as you can see, I'm using this part of the process to adjust the drawing that I did with my charcoal, which was, you know, the nature of charcoal drawings is that they're very sloppy, especially when I do it in 2 minutes. So it couldn't have been really any better. At least I don't have the skills to make it better. But now when I'm holding a brush in my hand, I'm taking slightly more refining approach. I just kind of put things where I think they kind of belong to get this cheetah shape a little bit better. And there's this cast shadow that's a little warmer, so I'm going to add some burnt umber into this mix. So I love the burnt umber. Sometimes it gets a little warm. And some of these color nuances, obviously, you're not going to be able to see in the photograph. But that's why paintings are better than photographs. And that's why painting from photographs is very ill-advised because you're losing on a lot of color nuance that the photograph just doesn't care about. So paint from life, people. Don't photograph Cheetah. Be in the room with Cheetah. Spend some time with Cheetah. Why are you not spending time with Cheetah? Seriously. And Rosalind, at this point, if people are asking stuff, just break into my flow because
Okay.
I've explained a lot of technical stuff, and right now I'm just going to focus on explaining what I'm doing. But I can do that, you know, with intermissions. It's totally great. So if you guys have questions, go ahead. Everybody's following along. What is this? Are you some kind of amazing group that listens amazingly? Thank you.
So there was one question. So if you had time, would you normally fix the charcoal drawing before painting?
Yeah, if I had time, I might have given the charcoal drawing a little bit more attention, but this has its limits because charcoal, as I said, is a very, very clumsy medium. And working with charcoal on such a tiny, tiny, tiny scale is almost a joke. So it's possible that I would have pushed it for maybe 10 more minutes, but really probably not more than that because it's just such a tiny scale that I don't think charcoal is very well suited for helping me capture things like proportions of the different parts of the subject. It's more I use it more for nailing the composition, and it just didn't take long for me to feel like the composition was there. I mean, everything was where I wanted it to be and in the right size. So even when I have time, I prefer to spend it on things that matter more. You know, like for example, I might have spent more time mixing extra variations of color so that I wouldn't necessarily have to mix cross mixes with my brush. Like instead of making two variations of everything, I might have made three. Um, and in general, like I think spending your time on refining your colors uh, when your composition is already working might be a better investment because I mean, of course, if my composition was failing, I would have had to devote time to it. But you know, it felt to me like things were working, so I didn't really see the need to spend any more time on that. Now you see, it's already like, well, maybe you don't see, but it's already kind of starting to drink up the solvent. So I'm having a very easy time working into it with paint that doesn't have any solvent and still utilizing the fact that the solvent from before is present. So it's making everything flow in a really easy way. Really easy way. And again, I'll just note that if you're interested in watching more videos of lessons, previous lessons, you can find a lot of them on my Patreon at patreon.com/KenGoshen. And I really appreciate the support of those of you who've already signed up. It means a lot to me, and it's really fun to have you. All right, that's pretty fun. I have a feeling that I'm going to go back into this area once this whole solvent mess bathtub is going to dry to kind of get this to be a little bit darker. But right now it's pretty difficult because it's very, very, very liquidy. So let's clean up my brush. Rag in your left hand. Always cleaning your brush. Between so many colors, you want to make sure that you're doing it. Even though actually, why not? I'm going to just use a new brush. New brush that I haven't used since this morning. And let's start on getting some tiger action over here. So this is shadow, tiger shadow. Let's see, tiger shadow. Very, very liquidy. The paper enables me to do that. And I do like making my shadows translucent. I think it really works with the aesthetic of shadows.
So someone wants to know why you decided to paint the background first.
Because it helped me get the drawing right. Because I wasn't able with the charcoal to really get the proportions perfect. So I used the shapes of the background in order to get a better understanding of where my subject is. You know, my charcoal marks were too sloppy because charcoal is a sloppy medium. So I figured by using the shapes of the background, I could get better definition of my subject. I keep on wanting to say my my figure or something. He seems so alive and so cute. But I don't know. Is it a portrait? Is it a still life? I don't really know what this counts as. A little bit darker. Drawing on some raw umber over here. Some areas are slightly darker. And I'm squinting a lot because I don't want to get into details yet. And also, I'm trying to not get these edges to be too sharp. I want to keep them fuzzy. You know, we're doing these fuzzy creatures. If I make a very sharp edge over here, everything's going to look very cut out. That's not going to be fun. Now I'm going to take this background thing again. If there's a background moment over here. No questions, people. This is your time. Let's chat. I rambled enough. Rock and roll.
We're just enjoying the view.
No, come. Getting bored, huh? Getting bored again. Ken's painting cheetahs. So boring. See here, I got this proportion wrong. Its leg's too high. So that means that I need to redo this shadow moment. That's okay. Alla prima, baby. Gotta move things around. And yeah, now let's hit the light. Light, 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 light. Yes, 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 that's fun. And notice I'm very, very, very conscious of the fact that if I make this too graphic, it's going to not feel fuzzy. So in the way that I'm applying my paint, I'm dabbing it kind of erratically on purpose. I'm using these alla prima moves, you know, making paint a little bit messy to suggest that we're working with a furry object. You know, this is not, this cheetah thing is not made of porcelain. You know, we want to kind of express the softness of the material. And for that, you know, it really requires you to be kind of messy with your brushwork. Let it be a liberating experience. I'm adding some raw sienna because it kind of mixed a little too cold for most of these areas. So taking care of that. So it's already looking kind of fuzzy. That's fun. Creating the fuzz factor. And thanks to everybody in advance for staying a little over. Hope it's gonna be worth it. I'm having fun. Hope you are too. Let me get into the brown areas. Nobody tells me they're having fun, I'll cry. I'm kidding. There we go. Get those paws in there. How are we doing on questions, Robin?
So far, so good. We just got a question in about the spots.
Yeah.
Won't the spots blend with the color beneath it?
Of course they're going to blend. That's part of the point. Because I really don't want the spots to look graphic. You know, if you make your spots way too graphic and sharp and not blend into their environment, you're going to really hurt the overall feeling of this entire motif, you know, because think about it. When you make something really sharp, you're drawing a ton of attention to it. And the spots have to be part of the whole before they are individual spots. It's much more important to make sure that the spots are, they feel like something that's on the fur, as opposed to something that's, got a life of its own. So hope this gamble pays out, but I'm pretty confident that this is kind of the magic of alla prima, that you're actually going to benefit from things mixing together a little bit. Of course, in a sketch that you do in 30 minutes, you're not going to be able to count every individual spot and define the borders of every individual spot. But what you're going for is the feeling of the overall thing, the feeling of the overall thing. And for that, I think we're actually going to benefit from things blending a little bit together. Now we're going to go for this light side of the fur. Still keeping it pretty fuzzy. Oh, cute cheetah. Here's going to be the pink nose. And then the eye area, and over here. I didn't really mix a color for the eye, so we'll see what we do about that at a later time. All right, now let's hit that pink mode. My brush is a little big for this. Make it work. Glowing pink nose. Makes everybody happy. Now let's go for the dark side of the light fur. Things only start to look, in balance once you kind of get rid of all these areas that still have the canvas lingering through. So I'm rushing to get that done first thing. And also, to your question about the fuzz blending, it's also part of why I was using a lot of solvent, because the solvent is going to reduce the presence of the paint. It's going to make it a little bit thinner than what I initially put down, so that it's going to make it a little bit easier to put an extra layer on top of that. Oh, cute cheetah. Going back to the background, just to adjust the shape slightly. Now there's some of that light fur on the belly over here. The belly of the beast. Nice. So right now, it's looking like a fuzzy object. It's looking pretty cat-like. So that's already pretty good. And soon enough, we won't be able to resist the temptation to add those spots in. What do you say? No questions about all of this?
So we have one question about why the slow drying solvent instead of the fast drying?
In this context, no reason. Fast or slow, both would work basically the same because it's a very quick sketch. But this is just something that I have more of in my studio because usually I don't like my things to start being sticky after 4 hours of work. So for this particular painting, it has absolutely zero significance. But for the majority of my work, especially the majority of my alla prima work, for example, when I do my challah paintings, for those of you who know them, they're almost all alla prima paintings, but they're alla prima paintings that I'm working with, that I'm working on for an entire day. Like I get up early, I set up my challah, and I go to sleep when the sun's down. So I just want to make sure that I can keep my painting wet and not drying and not becoming sticky for as long as I can. And that's why I like my slow drying medium, because I like painting alla primas for a long time and really extending my ability to work on them. Getting some of those shadows. First, I'm building the three-dimensional form before I add the spots on top, because I don't want them to puncture the masses of light and shadow. First, I wanted to scream light, and then, you know, Cheetah is secondary to light. First, it's light and fuzziness and texture. And only then, it's Tiger City, Cheetah City, whatever it says. You really have to prioritize. Again, this is why I told you that this is a big challenge, this painting, because it's very, very tempting to get into details. But first, you really want to build that feeling of three-dimensionality and mass so that when you put the secondary texture on top of it, the local color variation, it doesn't puncture your original statements. So I'm really sending as much as I need in terms of effort and attention, building that three-dimensionality of the form. The separation between where's the light, where's the shadow. And having mixed solid colors in advance, I hope you can see how hugely beneficial that is. Just allows me to paint very freely, very loosely, and to have much more fun with it. I'm just thinking to myself, what brush should I use for those spots? It's very likely that I'm going to go through a few brushes until I find the one that makes the right marks, but it needs to be almost like calligraphy. It needs to make the right effect. It's going to be lighter. Not light enough. There we go. There's a glow on this face. You need to make it feel like there's a glow on this face. Now we're talking. All right, we're getting ready for those spots. Hope they work. That's going to be fun if they do. Okay, let me think. What brush would get this job done best? I need something, probably a round brush, something like this, small round brush. Let's try that. Now we're going to test how these look in the light. I'm making marks loosely. And then see how they look in the shadow. Because I can't break up the mask. See, oh, gotta stop. Shadow ones are not looking dark enough. See this? The distance. Distance is too small. This calls for palette intervention. So let's do that. I'm going to grab this color and persuade it to be much darker. Hope everybody saw that. You need to make sure that when you're doing a texture, that the balance between what's in the light and what's in the shadow is sufficient. Let's try this one. This is something you cannot skip. Super crucial. Let's see this. Ah, that's much better. Nice. That's the key here. Getting the shadow spots to be much darker than the light spots. That way, you can play with putting those spots in there without harming the three-dimensionality of the form. You see how these spots feel like they're in the light and these spots feel like they're in the shadow? Very important. You can even make them slightly lighter as I'm doing here. There we go. So these spots don't compromise. I value distribution. Very, very important. Any questions so far? Rosalind?
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself. So someone is saying, just curious, would you agree that direct painting is more difficult than indirect painting?
Yes. How's that for an elaborate answer? Yes, it is more difficult. You have to know a lot more. You have to mix all your colors perfectly on the palette. You can't use any tricks like glazing. It's extremely difficult. The thing about indirect painting is that, you know, if it wasn't easier, nobody would do it. You know, the whole idea of separating your process into, you know, now I'm working on the values and the shapes, aka grisaille. Now I'm working on chroma, aka glazing. Like all those things are the reason to separate them into separate parts of the process is only because it's easier that way. Otherwise, nobody would ever use a technique that's, you know, less intuitive and harder. The only reason is it really helps you get to your to where you're trying to go much more simply. So yes, direct painting much more advanced, but super important to practice even if you're a beginner because it's going to teach you the most about the skills that you need to be a painter. You know, when you practice indirect painting, what you end up doing is you're increasing your chances of getting a beautiful result, but you're decreasing the amount that you're learning because direct painting really tests you much more as a painter, way more. Do you guys see how cool this is? That I'm putting dots on this thing and I'm not breaking my sense of light and dark because the distance on the palette, look at this. Look, I hope you can see me pointing on the palette. These two are so different, and yet on the painting, they look like I'm doing the same thing, just making sure that I don't put the light color in the shadow or the shadow color in the light. By maintaining this discipline, I'm fully preserving my value range and my overall well-being. I hope this looks that way through the camera too, because here in the room, it's super fun to watch. Any questions?
Nope, that brought us all up to all the questions that were asked.
Wow. Well, thank you everybody for staying longer. I do have more to do here, but Rosalind, if at any point you need to go, that's totally okay. We are very thankful to have you. Just make sure that you pass me the host so that I can take care of any kind of related business that needs to be done. And we're very happy to have you. Thank you so much for your help.
Yep, I'm here till the end.
Thank you. All right, everybody, we're extra lucky. Rosalind's staying. It's even better than finishing the painting. Thank you, Rosalind.
Of course.
So now I'm going to use this same brush to give some oomph to some of the light moments. Just put some yummy yellow marks over here. Just some impasto to make my day better. Because I'm a huge sucker for some good paint texture. Especially in the lights. I like that punch. This is a game of calligraphy. You don't want to paint every individual spot. You want to make moves that feel like the spots. I had a teacher once who told me, don't paint the trees in the landscape. Find how to write trees and write trees. I'll never forget that. So now we're not painting each individual dot. We're just getting the rhythm and trying to make that happen. So if you don't have any questions, I'd be really happy to hear if you learned anything new, something here is unexpected, not what you were used to. Your feedback is really something that is important for me to hear. What would you want more of when next time we have 2 hours? That would be very interesting too.
Someone says that they learned how you painted the light and shadow.
Well, if you learned that, you learned the biggest, the biggest lesson of oil painting, of realism in general. So that's great. All right. This is coming along in a very fun way. Clean my brush because I want some of those lighter moments back.
Someone says, I would have directly painted the spots, so it's interesting how you broke it up into 2 steps.
Well, you can paint them directly and get them to still blend nicely. I have no problem with that, of course. I just thought that if I just painted them directly, they wouldn't connect so well to the overall impact of the painting. So I just wanted to prioritize this whole thing feeling like it's part of the same object. And for that, the first thing that I usually worry about is that big feeling of light and shadow, feeling of how to create a three-dimensionality. Very, very important to me. Soon we're going to try to put the eye in. We're brave enough, right?
Someone said that they learned how to simplify a complex object.
Ooh, isn't that the best lesson of all lessons? I'm super happy to hear that. The most important thing for a painter needs to know that everything is too complicated to paint. And our job as painters is to be masters of taking something that's impossible to paint, seeing it simply so that we can paint it. That's basically it. It's all we're doing when we're doing things right. I'm having a lot of fun with everybody. Thank you again for signing up. This is so much fun. I think I'm going to get greedy and I'm going to try to get the light, these light areas to have another variation of value, even lighter, so that we get an absolute explosion of light happening. So I hope you're as excited about that as I am, because whenever I say something like that, I get all hyped up. So let me get this done. Super fun, cheetah moments. Great. Now let's get greedy, shall we? Yes, we shall. We're going to take this light color that we have for the fur, and we're going to make an extra light variation of it for maximum value impact. Gotta make sure we don't overuse it, because that's the kind of thing that if we overuse, sadness will be found in all the lands. Explosion of value, people. Get that drama in there. These are my favorite moments. Piling up that texture, getting that fuzziness. And then we're going to do the eye, right? I don't know how to paint that. It's very different. Human eye, like a glass ball. Think about what to do there. So this area of that fuzziness is very, very light. This side. And the rest needs to be a little darker. I have hair in my eyes too. I can barely see. Need a haircut, people. All right. That's fun. Let's get this edge better. Feather-like touch. Get that fuzz. And touch. Get these edges fuzzy. Now you know what I want before getting into the eye? Who can guess? Please do guess. Give me guesses. What's bothering me before I get into the eye? You guess, 25 points.
I'll let you know when they come through.
Thank you. 25 points, people. A lot is on the line. What's bothering me? I know you know this. All right, I'll tell you. Well, actually, it's really hard to guess because now I'm looking at the camera and in the camera it doesn't really show as a bother at all. But all these areas that I wanted to work on, later once the solvent dries, look super washed out on my painting right now because all the solvent evaporated. But on the camera, it looks totally fine. So I'm not gonna delay you. I'm gonna just keep on doing that later because on the camera it looks fine, and it's gonna take me a little while. So Let it just be known that all this area is not as dark as I would like it to be. Should I do it now or should I go for the eye? Make your voices heard.
They're saying go for the eye.
Ooh, that's what I figured. That's what I figured. So how would I mix it, people? Give me some advice. What do I need to do? How would you mix it? What a cute little fuzzy thing. Oh, so happy I found this doll. What should we paint next week? Oh, that's something I want to know. Come on, people. Assume I have some vegetables, some dolls, some household items. What do you want me to paint next week? Oh, isn't that the best question? Come on, let those voices be heard. What have you always wanted to see how it's painted, but never got the chance? Please don't say flowers. Any votes coming in? Problem?
Nothing so far. Someone said a wooden toy.
Wooden toy. Okay.
Someone else said a glassy surface.
Glass is pretty interesting. How do you like me not going to the eye? Just keep finding other things to do. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's mix colors for the eye. Can't stop. Can't stop, people. Okay, let's mix colors for that eye. So it looks to me the middle is like pitch black, seriously. Then around it, there's like a jewel scenario that's very yellow with a hint of light yellow. So that jewel portion is kind of like a raw sienna. It's like cadmium orange. Like a nice orangey yellow thing. More orange than that. More chromatic. That's more like it. Use this brown to create a darker variation. Slightly less brown. Serve nicely. And then we have this light moment, which is seriously light and very chromatic and very dangerous to get wrong. Oops. That's not it. Way too orange. Oh, I'm gonna have to take my 000 brushes for this one, gang. Super tiny. It doesn't come with a manual how to do this kind of eye. And then we have black, and then the highlight is very similar to the first, so we don't really need to mix anything there. Let's see what we can do. So we need some smaller brushes. I'm gonna grab my vicious tiny ones. Let's see, starting with literally black, because I know it's not going to end up being black because it's being put into a pretty light environment. See, it's already becoming gray. I have to pile up some more things on it, at least on the bottom. And pray. Could you pray for me to successfully paint a black on top of a white? Thank you for your prayers. There we go. Some medium sometimes helps. Now it's surrounded by this orangey scenario. Fun! Fun that it's nice, kind of working. I want to jinx myself, but doesn't look too bad. Now we're going to go back to the black. Because of course everything gets compromised. Now let's see if we can put that highlight on. That would be cool. These are the kinds of things that stress you out, and they should. That's not perfect. No. Push against it. Too small. Too small, people. What are you making me do? Hope everybody's chewing on their popcorn like crazy. Because I am on the edge of my seat. Peak tension, people. Now let's get the highlight there. Woo! Cheetah! That's not too bad. It's kind of like what it's supposed to look like. Pretty cute. It's too big. All right. What do you guys say? Questions? We're going to wrap up soon. If you have questions, write them in.
Nothing so far, but once they come through, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Robin. Now that I have this tiny brush, I'm going to use it for other stuff. I'm going to adjust this shape a little better. And here, light shadow, which I haven't managed to do.
Someone is wondering, how long will this take to completely dry?
Good question. If you were using regular white that most people use, titanium white, this could take weeks. But I use flake white. So for me, it might take maybe 4 days or something like that. If I would have used a drying accelerator, could have been a little less even. Because flake white dries much faster than titanium white. It's the white that's the most notoriously like slow drying agent of everybody's palette. You know, some pigments dry very fast, like umbers, sienna, cerulean, cobalt, and then very few pigments dry very slowly, like titanium white is notorious, alizarin crimson is notorious, cadmium's pretty notorious. But yeah, the biggest thing that I've done to make things dry a little faster is really make the switch to flake white. I don't recommend that to anyone who's even a little bit of a messy painter because it's a substantially more toxic pigment. Titanium is really the safest option. So if you're painting with flake white and you're getting paint on yourself, you have to stop. You have to stop getting paint on yourself. And I'm sorry for the noise. We have kids here being kids. All right, this is looking pretty satisfying to me. Any last questions, people, before we call it a night?
No, just a lot of compliments saying it's super cute.
Well, thank you. You guys are super cute. And thank you for staying extra, Rosalind, and thank you for staying extra, everyone else. It's a great thing to be able to work with everybody and having a lot of fun. Nothing like painting some cheetah with friends before dinner, right?
Someone just asked, what are the most toxic pigments?
Lead white, which is what you have in flake white. Cadmium, very bad for you. Cobalt, not your friend. Cerulean, not your friend. Yeah, I guess those are the biggest enemies of the state. All right, I think we're gonna call it at that.
Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. For longer videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/KenGoshen. For lessons, please visit my website at kengoshen.com/lessons. See you next time!